Elon Musk here from the future. It's Robert Phoenix and the Friday FARcast. Elon Musk here from the future. It's Robert Phoenix and the Friday FARcast.
Yes, indeed. Our good friend Elon Musk transmitting from the future and letting us know that we are live. And we're all hooked up here. Got the mic hooked up. And we've got we got a few people here. It says 14. Maybe by the end of the show, we'll have a few more. How is everybody? You may know me as Robert Phoenix. And if you are new here, which would be wonderful, that's who I am. And we get together here on Friday. Sometimes I talk to other people. Mostly now it's me, where I get to rant a little bit and catch up on what's happening in the world. It's just so strange. I'm looking at my backyard. There's leaves on the trees. Things are growing. It's springtime. The birds are chirping. The cycles and the seasons of the earth are kicking into gear here. It's the equinox. It's springtime. And yet there's like some heavy shit going on in the world. It's just weird. It's really strange, bizarre, cognitively dissonant. So I'm going to work through my cognitive dissonance, and I'm going to try to bring you some updates on what's going on in the war that's not a war, and then some. That's what we'll do today. But first, I wanted to talk about Chuck Norris. And if you aren't aware, Chuck Norris passed, I believe it was last night or early this morning. And Kevin in chat sent me a text and said that Chuck Norris had passed away. And, he and I were like just thinking on the same level, and how Norris's passing is really symbolic, because this is a guy who personified America. Chuck Norris personified America. I mean, he was a martial artist. He was an action movie star. He had a television show that ran for quite a long time. Walker, Texas Ranger was a really successful show. A lot of people don't realize or remember that, but it was on for quite a while. He had his side hustle with the fitness stuff. Chuck Norris was a really successful dude, right? I mean, and in the martial arts world, like, Chuck was a badass. A lot of people don't realize just how good he was. So there's a bit of a controversy that's always been floating around the martial arts world. And supposedly Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee squared off one time, and Chuck whooped his ass. And it's not something you really talked about, right? But it's always been kind of this murmur in the martial arts world that the mighty Bruce Lee got whooped up on by Chuck Norris. And part of it is just size. Chuck Norris was much bigger than Bruce Lee, right? And even though Bruce Lee had a lot of kinetic power, Chuck Norris had kinetic power plus mass, and his roundhouse kick was devastating. So Chuck was a world-class martial artist. Like when he was in his prime, he was at the top of the heap. Then he makes this transition to acting. And what's really interesting, and this is where the symbolic part really comes into it. 86 ain't bad. No. They have a big supplements line. They got into the health thing. And, I mean, look, when your number's on the book, when your name is on the book, your name is on the book. That's just the way it is. Unless you are heavy into adrenochrome and vampirism, Father Time is undefeated. Right. I mean, eventually, we all have our number written on the book. Go back and see, I've been doing this for a long time. Go back and see some of the other shows I've done. I look a lot different, right? You can see me as a much younger person, So it's like I get to see myself like Dorian Gray with these videos. It's like, oh, who's this guy? This is a new face. I haven't seen him before. Yeah, it happens, right? And Clint Eastwood, who is generally considered the canary in the coal mine, like when Clint Eastwood goes, supposedly that's when the world comes off its hinges. And Clint is still around. He's in his 90s. And I think, I think he's about 94, 95, something like that now. And Clint Eastwood, even though he did not have his own supplement line, Clint Eastwood has been a vitamin and supplement freak for years. I remember reading about him back in the 80s when he was doing like, 60 different vitamins and supplements a day. Like he was, Clint worked out and, he was in it for the long haul, right? And so he wanted to maintain his body and level of youth for as long as he could. And, seems to have worked. I mean, he's been around for a long time, right? I think genes have a lot to do with it too. Clint comes from that Pluto and Cancer generation where they weren't vaccinated. These Pluto and Cancer people, they just stick around, right? I mean, some of it is Pluto and Cancer, like clinging to life, but they also have very healthy systems. And the food that the Pluto and Cancer people were raised on was very different food. Very, very different. It was like real fucking food. You could eat wheat without it being, transgenic, and, it was closer to sort of the European wheat that is consumed by people in Italy, where Mel Gibson just did a little video where he was Mel Gibson here. I'm in northern Italy, and I can't believe how much pasta I've eaten. I haven't gained a single pound. There must be something different about the food here, right? And he's right. There is something different about the food. Europe does not allow genetically modified organisms in their food, and yet we do, right? So getting back to Clint Eastwood, I mean, he was raised on that. All these Pluto and Cancer people, they were just raised on better diets. So they don't have vaccines, really. They may have gotten the, the Jonas Salk vaccine, the polio vaccine. That might have been it. But that Salk vaccine didn't really come around until like the late 50s, early 60s. Like at a mass level, they were like testing it out here and there. And by that time, their immune system had been completely built out. Like the pile in their gut had been completely built out. So them taking I remember doing this with my parents. We took the polio vaccine on a sugar cube. Like, how weird is that, right? I remember taking it. We went to this place and they gave us this sugar cube and they put the vaccine on the sugar cube. It was a novel. It was like, it was like one of those things. I know how we're going to get the people to do this. We're going to give them a fucking sugar cube. Just like horses. Horses love sugar cubes. Humans love sugar cubes. Let's give them the sugar cube. Then we'll give them the needle. So we had the sugar cube. Anyway, that was about it for my mother and my father. And my mother passed away. She was in her 80s. But these Pluto cancer people, they're going to stick around. Their immune systems are just much better, right? All around. They had a better chance to develop, inside and out. What's really interesting about Chuck Norris, just a couple interesting tidbits. It was his birthday, I think 10 days ago. And I was going to do him for the star of the day. He was going to be my star of the day. And I was looking at his chart and I'm like, I don't know why I passed him up, but he was going to be my star of the day. Maybe we should take a look at this chart. That might be interesting. But there's this thing that I've talked about called the birthday effect. And it's how, and I started to notice this, 5 or 6 years ago. I'm looking at people's charts. I'm looking at when they're born, when they pass away, sort of the biographical details of their life. And then I realize how many people die near or around their birthday, right? Either just before it or just after it. There's an actual thing called the birthday effect. And they've studied this. And what's really weird is it seems to affect baseball players more than any other profession. But there's this, it's not provable scientifically. This is the weird part about it, right? It is not provable scientifically why people do this. But it's like they want to experience like their last birthday, even if it's not for themselves, right? It's kind of like they're hanging in there for other people. And I'm sure that, they say, oh man, if I could just get another day or two, right? But it feels like they're hanging in there for other people. And that's spirit, right? You can't really quantify that. You can't really like put it under a microscope. You go, oh yeah, here it is. I don't think you can find it in the genome, right? But there's something about it that it's really fascinating. So Chuck Norris got to his birthday 12 days past his birthday. The other interesting tidbit about Chuck Norris is who he did the bulk of his acting for. And it's like strangely symbolic for the time that we're in. And he did his acting with a group called the Cannon Group, right? So the Cannon Group, Cannon Films started out in the 70s, and it was owned by this couple. And they were like importing Swedish soft porn films. I think they did a movie with Peter Boyle. They're out of Los Angeles. They're like a super low budget production house, right? They're even more low budget than Roger Corman and American International. And they get bought out by these two Israelis. Is it Menachem? Oh, I had it up here. It's Golem and Globus, and I get their names. So it's Yoram Globus and Menachem Golan, and they're Israelis, right? Menachem Golan, and they're cousins, and they were actually born in what they called mandatory Palestine. So let me give you a kind of a glimpse here of the this is on Wikipedia. So this is Yoram Globus and gives you a bit of his background here. So keep in mind that Israel became a nation state in 1948, but it had been given to the quote unquote Jewish people and the Zionist Congress after World War I. And so essentially, like Theodore Herzl, the Rothschilds, right, they were in possession of that territory, which had belonged to the Ottoman Empire, not even known as Turkey at that time. It was the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire sided with Germany in World War I and lost the war. And as a result of that, the winner takes the spoils, right? So the English said, well, this is ours now. We're going to take this area. And that's where you get into something, like, Lawrence of Arabia shit and stuff like that, right? It's like, it's the heavy hand of the English moving into the Middle East. And the English are very influential in the formation of Israel. And they're also very influential in the formation of Saudi Arabia as well. And it's like they want the English know that oil is a thing, right? And they had discovered oil in Saudi Arabia. You go back and you look at World War II, and Hitler is in like North Africa, and so he's in Egypt, and I think he was looking for cult of relic stuff like the Ark of the Covenant and the Spear of Destiny and all that. Like I think that was part of it, but they were also looking for fuel, right? They knew that this area was rich with black goo. So once the English got in there, right, they set up their, they thought that, hey, we'll get the Jews out of Europe, and we'll give them mandate Palestine, and we'll set up a client state. That's what we'll do, and we'll do it there, and we'll help the House of Saud get off the ground in quote unquote Saudi Arabia, right? And we'll manage this. We'll manage these people. Egypt at that time was also part of the Ottoman Empire. That's how far down the Ottoman Empire extended. And it was basically, Egypt was basically ruled by Turks up until the time that Nasser eventually comes into power, and he's like a real Egyptian. Nasser, by the way, a Freemason. So there seems to be an interesting correlation between Freemasonry. Stalin was a Freemason too, but you didn't know that. Freemasonry and people who take roles of leadership, right? Anyway, so Israel gets established as Mandate Palestine after World War I. So you have people that are moving to that area, right? They're like, go east, young man. And so you have this population, right, that moves into that area. And they get born there. So Yoram Globus was born in Tiberias on the Lake of Galilee, Mandatory Palestine, in 1943 to Jewish parents who immigrated from Poland, right? It's like, there you go. Here's your... He was 3 years old. His family moved to the northern city of Kiryat Motzkin. His father, Shmuel, built a cinema, which was unique at that time. When the cinema opened, Globus was 5 years old, and was very interested in all aspects of the cinema. He would help with whatever the father needed, from hanging posters, serving as a cashier, to promoting movies. At the age of 10, Yoram became a projectionist. During high school, he moved to Tel Aviv, where his parents opened another cinema. He graduated business school and enlisted in the IDF. They always do. Served as combat soldier and officer, retired as lieutenant. So Menachem Golan is his cousin, and he passed away in 2014. Right, Yoram Globus is still alive. So born in Tiberias and then the British area, right? Jewish immigrant parents from the Russian Empire, went to the Old Vic School and Academy of Music, Dramatic Art, New York University. During the Israeli War of Independence, Golan served as a pilot in the Air Force. So this is a really interesting, strange spin. One of the things that Canon Films was known as the movie production company that was barely B. Like barely, and every now and then they would come up with a movie that was a winner, right? It was mostly action oriented. A lot of times it was campy, borderline campy, but films that took themselves quite seriously, even though they were campy. I think I could be wrong, but their biggest hit was Death Wish with Charles Bronson. That is a Canon movie. That's a Canon film movie, and then they had basically the Death Wish enterprise, right? Death Wish 1, Death Wish 2, Death Wish 3. I mean, Charlie Bronson killed a lot of people in those Death Wish movies, but they did a bunch of other Charlie Bronson films, some of which were very forgettable. But they were into these barely grade B action movies. Now, one of the movies that they produced was Operation Thunderbolt. And it's about the Israeli raid on the Entebbe airport in Uganda, which is a really, really weird thing, right? Really weird thing. That maybe we'll get into that one of these days. But man, they were on a bit of a run, right? They had Delta Force, Chuck Norris, Runaway Train with John Voight and Eric Roberts, the Death Wish franchise. And then it was taken over by Pathé Communications. And Pathé Communications, they're the production company that does all the Pink Panther cartoons, right? Golan produced several comic book style movies in the last half of the 80s, notably Masters of the Universe, based on the Mattel toy line, inspired by the comics of Jack Kirby. Superman 4, Quest for Peace. I think that was one of Christopher, what's his name's last Superman movies. Let me just see. I think that's it. Christopher Reeve plot. He had agreed to return in exchange for a larger salary and limited creative control. So it's the Canon Group that did this. I think this was the last Superman movie that Christopher Reeve was in. Gene Hackman's in it. Gene Hackman did it for the money. Look at that. John Cryer was in it. I didn't know that. There's John Cryer. They had a lot of the original cast in. That's interesting. But that was not an Alexander Salkind movie. So what's interesting about all of this, right, is that Golan and Globus are decided, I mean, they're born in Israel, right? They're like decidedly Israeli, Jewish. And here we are, we're basically at war, which is a non-war. We're not at war, but we're at war. And where is it taking place? Well, it's taking place in the Middle East. Israel is involved, right? I mean, Israel's getting their clocks cleaned. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they're getting their absolute clocks cleaned. And there are people who, Lamb Chop, if you're in chat, you were in chat yesterday and you were telling me that there was a different narrative going on, that I was wrong. Look, I hope to be wrong. I hope to be wrong. I don't, if there's a narrative where, we come out of this as a country and we liberate, the Iranian people, and, Israel is so damaged and weakened that they just don't have the same pull and power over this country politically, economically, right? And then that's a win. Like, those are wins. Okay, if you want to look at a win situation, the absolutely terrible, horrible regime of Iran that people are crying about, bemoaning, that we are the liberators. We flipped the regime. Israel's weakened, and we just brush off the dust of the falling buildings and the sands of the Middle East. And we're good. All right. Open up the strait. Let's get the world back together again. We have harmony. We have hegemony. And we have oil. Man, that's the win. That is the win. But is that what's really going to happen? And, there are people who believe that that's what's going to happen. Now, the problem is that we're dealing with the fog of war. We know, but we don't really know, right? We know, but we don't really know. We don't really know, but we know. And this is, and we get these snippets and tidbits, and we get these weird AI videos of Bibi Netanyahu. And there's one with him and Mike Huckabee. It's just, I'll see if I can find it and play it. It's just fucking bizarre. It's bizarre. I'll see if I can find a play for you. But getting back to this symbolic thing, right? It's like Chuck Norris is this American icon, action hero, right? He is really woven into the fabric of late 20th century American culture. He's an icon, right? And most of his films were produced by the Cannon Group. And the Cannon Group has these deep ties to Israel. They're born there, right? These are Israeli filmmakers. And here we are embroiled in this not war, and it just seems strangely symbolic, and not in a good way. I have to say, right? Like, not in a good way. Like, like Chuck Norris, he's about as John Wayne as it got in modern American culture. Like, Chuck Norris never played an anti-hero. Never. He never played a bad guy. Why should he? Chuck Norris was a good guy. I mean, he was a good guy in life. Why should he ever play a bad guy? While all these other, actors, these contemporary actors, they had no problem playing the anti-hero. Hell, Clint Eastwood created the genre with his spaghetti westerns, and you had all these characters like going in the opposite. John Wayne hated Clint Eastwood, both Geminis, by the way. He hated Clint Eastwood because Clint Eastwood, he basically thought Clint Eastwood took a dump on cowboy movies and ruined this idea of the cowboy as this symbol of justice and moral integrity and all these kind of post-World War II virtues that were really a part of the first turning. But the first turning happens right after World War II, and it's called the age of the hero, right? Or the time of the hero, the season of the hero. It's like spring. And I've talked about this before, and how you have all these characters after World War II that are very pro-American, and they're selling the retelling of the war, the retelling of the West, right? Westerns become very popular, post World War II, all the way up through the early days of television, where Westerns dominate. They dominate TV, right? So there's this idea, right? Like America is peak. There's a culture of the hero, and the heroes, John Wayne, Audie Murphy, Gary Cooper. These are the guys, right? That, those are just three off the top of my head. I'm sure I could dig around for more if I wanted to. But these are the guys that represent the first turning. And that's like the spring of America, right? That is the spring. And then we get into the 60s. And the 60s are like the summer of America. And not so ironically, we get the summer of love. And I believe it's called the age or the time of the artist. And that's when the anti-hero is born, right? That's when, and Brando, he's the first real anti-hero. He kicks it off, right? Brando's characters are rough, rugged, and they're not always likable, right? But it really kicks into high gear when you have Eastwood in the spaghetti westerns. Paul Newman begins to show up and kind of starts playing that role of the anti-hero, Cool Hand Luke, the hustler, right? You get these characters whose moral center is left of center, right? And in some cases, they're depending upon, like Charlie Bronson, who is really an anti-hero. In Death Wish, I'd say that's right of center, right? Like he's taking the law into his own hands. So it's really interesting that Chuck Norris, in a period where all these other actors, and even Clint Eastwood later in his film career, when Chuck Norris was making movies, Clint Eastwood was still playing a bit of the role of the anti-hero, right? And some of these guys whose film careers were able to continue, they do still play a bit of this anti-hero role, right? They're okay with it, right? And then you get sort of the younger group of actors like Pacino, De Niro, and Hoffman. They got no problems playing the anti-hero. Even Gene Hackman would dip into the anti-hero role every now and then. But Chuck Norris never did it. Chuck was about as American as it gets. He was the John Wayne of modern American cinema and television. And that's why his passing, I think, at this time is really interesting and strange and symbolic, right? Like if I'm looking at this, I'm going, man, like we're embroiled in this war. And Trump just said, well, we're going to need another month. Well, I thought it was over. I thought it was done. Now we need another month. Okay. Are you starting to feel like this may be a little like COVID? Like this might be the new COVID? Yeah, it'll be over in 2 weeks. Okay. They're defeated. We sunk all their navy. They have no firepower left. Got a little too Jersey in there. Well, if that's true, then why isn't it over? Why is it that the Straits of Hormuz are still closed to American ships? Now, hey, look, I may not have the whole story. There may be a media blackout, a counter narrative, Israel for last. Maybe this is all what's going on. And, I'm just a limited hangout. Could be, right? But going on what I see astrologically, and we haven't even gotten into Israel's chart. I'm going to save that for Sunday night. I need some content for Sunday night. We got into Iran's chart last weekend. We got into the USA chart last weekend, both of which I thought were incredibly symbolic and timely, with Saturn moving into the fourth house of both countries. Isn't that interesting? So from what I can tell, like there's a there. There's, you had three guys all born on an eclipse. We know, based on the narrative, right? Khamenei is gone. Netanyahu. So let's talk a little bit about Netanyahu. He did this video. I'm alive. All you people who thought I was dead. Yeah, fuck you. I'm alive. You can't get rid of me. Victory. So apparently, right, there's this plane that he's on. And it is fucking circling. They have the plane logs, right? The plane sort of view, the plane view. It is like circling for 4 hours because nobody will take the damn plane. Greece, nah, we don't want them. I mean, think of the political ramifications. Even if the guy is alive and well and just, wants to move his base of operation outside of Tel Aviv, the political ramifications for some of these countries is enormous, right? Like, because they depend, these European countries depend on, liquid natural gas, LNG. They're fucked without it. And now Netanyahu is really an enemy of the caliphate state, right? Like it is on. And these countries are, no, sorry, we'll pass. We'll pass. But what I heard was that while he was in that plane, he was put into a medically induced coma. And eventually Germany says, okay, I think it might have been their Holocaust guilt. That's what I think. And let's absolve ourselves of the Holocaust guilt once and for all. We're going to show the world that we're not evil fucking Nazis. will be the ones that will take in Bibi Netanyahu, which they did. And apparently they could not raise him from his medically induced coma. Now, there is a video, theoretically, of Netanyahu. Let's see. Where he is, it looks like he's in a very precarious place. Let me see if I can find here. Let's see. It's close. Okay. So this is from Ryan Mata over on Instagram. Pretty good follow, actually. If you haven't followed this guy, it's a pretty good follow. So let me play this video. And you be the judge on this one, okay? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Here we go.
See this video that's claiming allegedly this was when Netanyahu got taken out? Check this video out.
From Israeli officials in which Israeli prime can be seen dying in an Iranian missile strike.
We don't know if that is real or that seems like it might be AI, but yeah, we have reports coming in from this gentleman of all of these Israeli generals who have been taken out. Check this out.
Okay, so I got great news. It has been officially confirmed that Itamar Ben-Gvir, Minister of National Security, has been eliminated. David Barnea, who is the head of the Mossad, has been eliminated. Shlomi Binder, head of the intelligence, has been eliminated. David Zinni, Chief of General Staff, has been eliminated. And Tomar Bar, Commander of the Air Force, has also been eliminated. It's not without speculation now. It's actually almost inevitable that Benjamin Netanyahu has also been killed in that airstrike that killed David Barnea, the head of Mossad, because they were meeting up that same day. And he was put into an induced coma. Now, the Israeli government reached out to European countries to have him flown out, and they all denied him, except Germany. And at this point, we know that is a fact because his plane, Wings of Zion, was in Germany, and they had him in an induced coma, but he succumbed to his injuries and inevitably died on March 11th. So you'll be hearing about it soon, probably tomorrow or the day after, but you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, man. Great news, but a long way to go.
After the United States decided to take out the oil fields literally in the Gulf that supplied all of our Gulf and ally states, after America decided to attack those oil fields, that was Iran's limit. And this is what Iran had to say.
You messed with the wrong country. Your propaganda doesn't work anymore. A strategic defeat to the United States under Trump.
And what does that look like?
You'll see in the weeks ahead.
Is there a deal possible? Is there a chance of talks between the two sides at this point?
No, not at all. We will fight, and we'll hold the U.S. by the throat through the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll continue to hammer them. And if they try to do anything on the ground, then they'll really see what we can do. You've messed with the wrong country. Your propaganda doesn't work anymore. And the Iranian people have shown their resolve. They'll see this through. What you've done to the Palestinian people, to the Iraqi people, to the Cuban people, to the Venezuelan people.
We are running out of time. We are running out of time.
I don't know if this is real or not, but did anybody see this video that's claiming allegedly this was when Netanyahu...
Okay, so you get the story, right? And then we have all these strange Netanyahu AI, right? We have all these strange Netanyahu AI videos. Let me see if I can find one. Netanyahu and what's his name? Mike Huckabee. You guys have seen this one. Can't find it. I mean, this is just, whether it's real or not, it's just fucking bizarre. This is just really, really, utterly bizarre. Let me show you guys this. We are living, you can feel Uranus and Gemini just starting to encroach on everything. All right, here we go. Watch this. This is just nuts. Seeing if I can get rid of the chat. No, I don't think so.
The president asked me to come and make sure you were okay.
Yes, Mike. Yes, I'm alive.
I checked that, and I'm happy to see that. But he wanted to make sure because, you know, you guys get along too well.
I know, and we shake hands with 5 fingers in each hand. You know, but I have to tell you, I'm alive, but I have this card.
Oh.
And yeah, don't read it. So it's a punch card.
Mm-hmm.
Today I raised 2 names on the punch cards, and you see how many more to go.
Name is not on the punch card.
Your name is on the list of the good guys.
Thank you.
And what the president, the U.S. forces are doing is incredible. We're very proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And getting rid of these lunatics who would like to develop nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every American city after wiping out Israel. They ain't going to do that. We're wiping them out.
I love it. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
The president asked me to come.
That is just so bizarre. What do you make of that? What do you make of that? It's just, even if that's real, it's totally bizarre. Like, even if you're for the war, okay? Even if you're for this and you see this as, you know, our God-given right and duty to protect the unfree world, and that it's all part of a master plan, right? Like, even if you are totally sold on that POV, how do you not just admit that that is so fucking cringe? It is so cringe. If it's real, it's totally cringe. Like, do you just hold your nose and look the other way? You go, oh, yeah, this is one of those necessary evils that you have to put up with in order to restore order to the rest of the world. I don't know, man. There's a lot of justification, right? There's a lot of justifying going on. You know, it's like, how far or how much justification do you have to do before you get twisted into a pretzel? That's my question. Like, how far does it go until you finally are like, I'm all twisted up, and it's like, I just want this thing to end. You know, now they're talking about going after this Karg Island, which is in the Straits of Hormuz, and it is a critical strategic launching pad for the Iranians. So I think it was Matt Bracken who talked about this. And he talked about how long it took for the Americans to finally take Iwo Jima, an island, a small island. And it was long. Like the Americans fought in Iwo Jima for like 8 months. And they lost a lot of men in Iwo Jima. Yes, it was a strategic island because that's where Japan was, launching a lot of their planes. That they weren't, and they had refueling there. Like Iwo Jima was important because Japan had possession of it. It was much closer to where they needed to be in order to strike and make a difference, right? So in order to decapitate Japan's reach for refueling, launching, etc., they had to take Iwo Jima. It took them 8 months. One island, right? One island. And then you have to not just, okay, you don't just launch a land force. You have to have the ability to arm and feed those people for months on end. If indeed, right, we're in an Iwo Jima style scale for taking a small island. It's not as easy as it seems. So getting men in and out or supplies in and out, because there'll be casualties. You're going to have to get people out of there, right? Like, that's not easy. So you think, oh, yeah, we can take that island. No problem. We take that island and we take control of the Straits of Hormuz again, and we're good. That's all we need, because now Iran can't dictate the terms and conditions of what it is to win or lose. And I was watching the Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent interview, which I have some thoughts about. And one of the things that Tucker brought up that I thought was really interesting is that the winners of the war, or any war, are the people or the entities that stop the war. And he was right? Like, it's not always the people that win the war, but it's the people that come in and stop the war, because they're the ones who are ultimately victorious. And they're the ones who are now looked upon as the true power, because they were able to end the conflict. And that was huge. And when he talked about that, I said, you know what, that's really interesting. So of course, who does he think of? He thinks of China, right? He thinks of China. China can come in here, and they're independent. And by the way, the Iranians are letting the Chinese tankers go through the Straits of Hormuz. And the Chinese are now paying them in the yuan, but I'm sure they've been paying them in yuan for a while. But they have this backed credit system, which I talked about the other night, the other day. It was on 15 minutes, and I saved this. I'm gonna throw it up here on the screen in a second. Let me just find it here. It's let me see, hold on. Sometimes these things, that's my son's recipe for Cajun Creole ravioli. Cajun Korean Creole ravioli or whatever it's called. Looks good. Let me just check here. I might have shit canned it. No, it's still on my desktop. Let me find this damn thing. There it is right there. All right, I'm going to load this up and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Before I do, I just want to thank everybody for being here and also want to take this time to honor the sponsor of our show, which is, of course, True Hemp Science. And we'll get the banner up there. And True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. Things are going really well over in Chris' world. People are supporting the business, and CBD is changing their lives. And the gummies are worth the price of admission. There's daytime gummies and there's nighttime gummies, right? The nighttime gummies help you sleep. The daytime gummies, let's just say they change your perception and attitude just a little bit, okay? And then there's a whole host of tinctures. You have Synapta right here for brain focus. They're fantastic. They get into your cells. They lubricate your cells. 30 days worth of a CBD regimen is a life changer. So just type in 15-MINS, 15-MINS. Get the goodie bag on top of your order of $100 or more. You'll be happy, you'll be satisfied, and you'll be a return customer. I guarantee it. Get a little True Hemp Science sticker in your box as well. Okay. There we go. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to bring this up. And I had this on 15 a couple days ago. And I realize that not everybody who hangs out here shows up on 15 minutes. So let me bring this into the conversation. This was originally sent to me by Masaki. Iran is not, I think it comes off of one of the Chans, I think. Iran is not an insolvent pariah state. Iran is the primary source of unhedged liquidity for the shadow banking system. London is the hub. Tehran is the offshore battery. IRGC energy credits are not sold. They're swapped for Vostro credits in mid-tier Omani banks. These credits get bundled into collateralized synthetic obligations. They hit the London repo desks as high-quality collateral to back short-term loans. You see what's going on there? It's basically a Ponzi scheme, right? They're using these IRGC energy credits. It's not dollars, they're credits, right? They get paid in credits. So IRG energy credits, they're not sold. They're swapped for Vostro credits. So it's kind of like if you have your digital currency in USD, right? You could swap it for some other digital coin, right? So this is what's taking place now. So that goes into another form. It's a Vostro credit in mid-tier Omani banks. So mid-tier Omani banks, they're not super, super high end, right? But they're not also, lower tier and on the verge of insolvency. All right. These credits get bundled, right? So they get bundled. The Vostro credits get bundled into collateralized synthetic obligations. And a synthetic obligation means it doesn't even really exist, right? At that point, it is 2 stages removed from its original valuation, right? Which is the energy credit. So these are synthetic obligations, meaning that they're created, that they have very little tether to fiscal and physical collateral. That's what it means. They hit the London repo desks as high quality collateral to back short-term loans. So this is like a bait and switch game. I mean, there's a there with these credits, but they're being repurposed and portrayed as having more value than they actually have, right? And they're there to back short-term loans, and short-term is the key. Because they're long-term loans, it'd be problematic, right? The short-term loans enable them to turn the money around and keep the thing going, right? So this is critical, short-term loans. Without the 24/7 inflow of dark energy-backed paper, the City of London's leverage ratios collapse. And some people are going, yay, good. Tear down the City of London. Yay, good. Evil bankers. The 2026 Iran war is based on 2 factions of the global elite fighting one another. Their fight has gone from boardrooms to kinetic events, which can also be seen via other seemingly unconnected accidents in the form of private transport crashes and security lapses for world leaders. We've seen a few of those, haven't we? Faction A, old money central bankers. They aim to keep the Iran loop open at all costs. They know the Western debt to GDP ratio is terminal. They use the shadow trade to suppress domestic inflation and keep the repo market from seizing. To them, a nuclear deal is just a legal patch to keep the detergent flowing. Faction B, pay attention to Faction B. Faction B, Silicon Valley neo-feudalists. They aim for kinetic escalation and regime change. They want to force a global default and great reset to move everyone onto a fully CBDC tracked ledger. They attack the Iran loop because it is untracked and gives old money a way to survive without their tech. So what we have here is we have a clash, right? We have a clash of old money who is basically running off the SWIFT banking system, right? And then you have the new money who wants to do away with those guys, right? And in the process, getting rid of their rivals means that they take control of their assets. Whatever assets they have that are not negatively amortized, they get them, right? So this would be a boon for Faction B. I'll just keep reading this. There is no blockade. It's a monopoly. The sanctions are not walls. They're tolls. They create a compliance tax that ensures only the 5 biggest banks can handle the volume. Seizing the central bank of Iran is about deleting the last off-grid gold reserves. If the Iran loop breaks, London will take a 30% liquidity haircut within 48 hours, which one may see via a shift in the gold to oil ratio. Okay, that's huge. escalation will probably involve cutting subsea cables. The system is cannibalizing its own infrastructure to stay alive. Okay? Think about that for a second. At a certain level, it all makes sense, right? It all makes sense. And yes, does Iran not want to be steamrolled by the United States? Are they pissed that 170 girls got blown up at a school? You're damn right they're pissed. So these things can happen on multiple levels, right? And when you look at who Trump has surrounded himself with, like in the first term, he had Wilbur Ross, who was a Secretary of the Treasury. Wilbur Ross is a Rothschild guy. Wilbur Ross bailed Trump out of big financial debt, bankruptcy. He bailed him out. The Rothschilds bailed out Trump. So Trump 1.0 was his obligation to his Rothschild debt. Okay? That's what Trump 1.0 was about. And Trump had all of these swamp monsters. Now, he had taken care of that debt. And Trump 2.0 is not about the Rothschilds. What you see in Trump 2.0 is the tech bros. Elon Musk, Doge, Peter Thiel, Palantir, Anthropic, Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, Mark Andreessen, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Hell, we even saw Tim Cook sitting at a dinner, right, with Trump and all the tech bros. This is who Trump has aligned himself with. Who do you think is pushing for this war? It's the tech bros. And Israel. Israel is partnered with American tech in a huge, huge way, right? I've talked about this before. Paul Singer, the vulture fund capitalist who absolutely destroyed Cabela's and who was a Trump backer, then he wasn't, and now he is. Paul Singer is a huge, huge proponent and financial backer of Unit 8200, which is the IDF's crack cyber intelligence and security group. And a lot of these Unit 8200 trained people have spun off, they've created businesses, they've found positions inside of American companies at extremely high levels. So this is like there's somebody who's a ex-Unit 8200 person who's over on TikTok now, which is owned by Larry Ellison. So Israel has a huge investment in Silicon Valley and their projects. And I talked about this on 15 minutes. I'm going to show you for a second here. Just what I'm talking about and the scope. All right. So I want you guys to take a look at this. This is there's a company. It's called Sequoia Capital. It's in the Bay Area, and it is very much connected to Silicon Valley and the digital world. Right? They're huge funders. They find investors to do funding. And I've covered this before, but Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant are big investors in some of these companies. Let's take a look at them. So here we go. Sequoia Capital has heavily invested in Israeli cybersecurity and defense tech sector, launching a $950 million combined fund for AI and security startups in 2025. Key investments include AI-powered data security firm Sierra threat management platform, Zephyr Security, and AI platform defender Apex Security. They also back Kila for defense technologies. Look at the money that's being thrown around here. Sequoia is a key investor in the AI-driven data security company, Sierra, which reached a $1.4 billion valuation in early 2024 and continues to see high valuation growth. Zafran Security led a $60 million Series C supporting the company's AI data threat exposure management platform. Apex Security invested in this company that secures AI platform against cyber attacks. Kila partners with this company to enhance Israeli defense tech for Western military use. Spirit co-led a funding round for this cybersecurity startup specializing in security. So what do they focus on? High volume funding. Sequoia's recent moves are part of a larger aggressive push to invest in the Israeli cyber industry, which saw $4.4 billion in funding in 2025. Focus on AI defense. They get government contracts. It's found fucking money, right? Found money. Integration. Despite closing its local office years ago, Sequoia remains closely integrated with the Israeli ecosystem, regularly collaborating with local investors like CyberStarts. So this is from last year, August 27th, C-Tech magazine. Sequoia's Sean McGuire, Israel is ideally positioned for AI as firm unveils $200 million seed fund. Sean McGuire is a Zionist, hardcore Zionist. So you wonder why, right? Like the tech bros have an interest here. You wonder why Israel, look at this, AI security boom triples valuation. This is just from last year of Israeli startup. This is Sierra. So let me see if I can find this. Masaki sent me another gem. Let me see if I can find this thing. Here we go. This is from NVIDIA. So this is what we're talking about here. This is the crossover, as they say. So I'm just trying to give you guys some receipts. NVIDIA CEO says he's 100% committed to Israel. It will have staff there for a very long time. NVIDIA being, of course, a major chip manufacturer and into the motherboard experience, right? So there's this relationship between Israel, the tech bros, Silicon Valley, CBDC, trackable ledgers, cybersecurity, and all these fucking startups. Like, they want to run the table. This is a reset. What you're seeing is part of the Great Reset. And even the petroleum stuff, right? Like, get rid of that because Elon Musk will, He'll be a big winner with his electric car fleet. Huge winner. They'll just put everything on the grid. Now, could there be a better way to travel than petroleum? Sure. Invest in hydrogen cell technology. Toyota made a hydrogen cell car. You could buy it. It was available. And the problem is that refueling at this point is expensive. And number two, it's also not easy to find hydrogen fueling stations. They're there, but sometimes when they say they are on, whatever kind of app you have and you get there, they may not be open and the pumps may not be working. So, yeah, I mean, there's options. There have been people that, have had engines and technology that run on water, and Detroit's crushed it. Look, we don't have to just be tethered to electric, right? And this is one of the big problems. It's like holding back these technologies that, can absolutely and utterly change the socioeconomic picture. With some of these advanced technologies they've been sitting on for a long time, it's a game changer. And we're dealing with like technological constipation. I mean, let's just think about it for a second. This is the only thing that we've gotten for a long time, right? I just got the new update last night, which I didn't want, but I got it anyway. So yeah, right. There's alternatives. It doesn't have to be gas or electric. If you're not into gas, there's other ways of going about it. But gas is a big part of the story right now, right? Huge part of the story. So what happens if we don't finish the mission? Right? Like, if we finish the mission, then theoretically, Iran is completely toppled. Completely toppled. And if that post about these two factions, the old world money and the new world money, that they're at war with each other, if that is true, right, then it's the new world money and it's the techno neo-feudalists who win, right? They'll win. And so it doesn't really matter if we control the Straits of Hormuz, because what they want ultimately is to move away from the petrodollar, period. And petro is a really important part of the word dollar. So in order to move away from the petrodollar, you get rid of the petro. Am I right? And now you have this CBDC, completely trackable currency. That's the reset. So if that's what winning looks like, that's what's coming our way. That's what's coming in our direction. If the so-called old money powers, and now you can see why, right? You can see why Spain, Italy, France, England, none of them want any part of this war, because they know what's going on financially. So their existence, their financial existence is tied to the city of London. So they're not gonna rock the boat. They don't want to hasten their own demise. Plus, they also don't want to be seen as, allies. Remember, these countries are filled with Muslims. You don't think that was strategic? It was totally strategic. What happens if they get involved Yeah, we'll send ships down there. Yeah, we'll help you out. The internal friction would be off the charts. So Europe has to maintain its own population, which at this point is decidedly Muslim, right? Like, I mean, there are still areas and pockets of Europe where it's not, although Switzerland, but the Muslim faith and culture is rampant throughout Europe. And it all started during the 2010s, right? It's all when it happened. So they can't really pick a side. Number one, because it's connected, they're connected to the City of London and the old system. And number two, they've got sleeper cells like you wouldn't fucking believe inside their country or countries. So winning, there's a price attached to winning. Just saying. And losing at this point is not great either. Right? So maybe the old system stays in place, but the United States is considerably weakened on the world stage. Like it is really the end of like the unipolar system. And this is where we get into the death of Chuck Norris, where we started, right? This icon who is embedded in the American ethos. Chuck Norris is he's like a folk hero. You know, Chuck Norris was also anti-chemtrail. He was also anti-fluoride. Chuck Norris was one of us. He was one of us. You know, and we just lost a great American, a really great American. And in the midst of this conflict, to me, it's a little troubling. You know, am I going to lose sleep over it? Probably not. Am I going to think about it? Yeah, I will. I will think about it. It's very symbolic. Let me just take a look at this chart real quick. Chuck Norris, Pisces. Oh, come on. Yeah, Norris, let's do that. Okay. 10 days ago. Born in Ryan, Oklahoma. Let's see. Here we go. Mercury, Moon, and Jupiter in Aries. Mercury in Pisces. 29 Pisces. He's born on a new moon in Aries. And he has Jupiter in Aries. And he has Saturn in Aries. Look at that. So he's an action hero. All that Aries, right? It's action. Action, baby. Aries is action. He's an action hero. He had Saturn conjuncting his moon, opposing, looks like Neptune at 24. You know who has the Saturn-Neptune opposition going on in this chart? Donald Trump. 8th house. Trump's got a Neptune opposition as well. Venus and Taurus, Mars and Taurus, Mars, Uranus conjunction. He's got Pluto at 0 Leo. So he went through the Pluto opposition. In most cases, people that go through the Pluto opposition can live like into their 90s, well into their 90s. Apparently, Chuck wasn't one of them. Let's see, Saturn at the end of Aries, and his sun is at 19 Pisces. Yeah, Saturn was on his moon, right? Saturn opposing Neptune. Those Saturn-Neptune oppositions, those are tricky, right? They can be really, really tricky. They can put you in the hospital. Because Neptune rules hospitals, right? Neptune, Pisces, he's got it in Virgo, bit of an opposite sign. Born on new, you can tell Chuck was born on a new moon in Aries. Single pointed chart. And Neptune rules acting, right? It rules acting. Neptune rules acting. Pisces and Leo are the best actors. He's got Pluto and Leo. He has Neptune in the ninth house, even though it's in Virgo. And he's got that Mars trine to Neptune, right? And he's a warrior, and he does these movies, and the movies that he did were action, and the bulk of them were from what? They were from producers who were born in Israel, which are very ninth house, right? It's very ninth house. He's got an interesting chart. Not a lot of water in Chuck's chart. What has he got? He's got Mercury and the sun. That's not too bad. In Capricorn rising, he was able to be strong and vital for a while, right? He was in good shape. There were pictures of him, on his birthday. He looked reasonably well. I mean, the guy took good care of himself, right? Right, Peachy? Yeah. If we're looking for anything, it's this. I think it's Saturn on his moon in a bit of a wide opposition with Neptune in the beginning of the Neptune opposition in the chart. Right, Peaches? Yeah. You guys want to see Peachy? Here she is. She's up here because she wants to eat. She's got me trained. I'm a lab experiment for Peachy. That's all I am. I'm the human. I'm the human that feeds her. And then she acts really, really nice. Yeah, you're not too demanding, are you? Every now and then, though, she'll let out a meow, and it's like, whoa, where'd that come from? She's like looking at me. She'll do this meow. It's like, bitch, give me some of that food. Yes, I know. You're very sweet, but you have an edgy side. You have an edge to you. I wouldn't want to be the person that doesn't feed you for a couple of days. She would turn on me. Jasper wouldn't turn on me. You would, though. You would turn on me. I just wanted to kind of close this off with the Joe Kent thing. I was going to play some clips from it, and I'm not going to do that. I want to give you my summary. I watched it once all the way through, and I started to watch it again. And my first impression was that it was a wasted opportunity based on the interview with Tucker. I have to go back and listen again because he says things in the interview that are revealing if you're really paying attention. There are certain things, I'm not a security expert, right? But this whole idea that, Soleimani the guy that they wiped out, right? They tricked him, who's Iranian. And he said that Soleimani was operating all these proxies, these Iranian proxies, and that they had to take him out. Soleimani defeated ISIS. And ISIS was created by the US and by Israel with a splash of Turkey and some MI6. That was your ISIS, right? ISIS never, not once, ever did anything untowards Israel. Never. Did you ever hear Israel talk shit about ISIS? No. Hamas, Hezbollah, oh yeah. But they never said ISIS was evil, that we have to get rid of ISIS. Why is that? You know, ISIS' main foe in the region was Syria. They had a beef with Syria. You think Israel really cared if ISIS had a beef with Syria, a country that, quite frankly, you know, they didn't want to see being independent? Also, another country kind of off the central, it's on the central, well, it didn't have a central bank. It was not connected to the central banks. But it also wasn't connected to this like digital ledger, right? So Syria was kind of this interesting wild card, this free agent. And I think at the end of the day, it was in Israel's best interest to get rid of Assad and flip Syria. And now you have a leader from ISIS running Syria. Isn't that interesting? And Soleimani defeated ISIS. And that was a real pain in the ass, right? That was a real pain in the ass for Israel and the U.S. They didn't want this. He was a brilliant tactician, and he took out their Frankenstein monster in ISIS. So Joe Kent was talking about that, right? How good it was to have Soleimani removed, and that the president did a great job. He acted with precision and courage, and he really, really spoke highly of Trump. And he's like, oh my God, the guy listens, and he's so smart, and he's able to piece things together. Okay. Meanwhile, Trump is taking a crap on him, but that's a different story. But I think if you go back and you listen, he's saying things that are not, he's not saying things with a megaphone, but he is saying some things that are really important. And the important part of the interview is when he talks about how he, through all of his intelligence gathering, never saw Iran as a threat, and that includes being a nuclear threat. That's what his intelligence told him, right? The intel said no. They saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi when Gaddafi said, okay, I'll dismantle my nuclear technology, and therefore, I'll put the brakes on any nuclear weapon that I might develop outside of that. So he did that. What happened? Yeah, he got sodomized by a bayonet. That's what happened to Gaddafi. So Iran paid attention to that. Like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll do some other stuff, Like, if you want us to give up some missiles, we'll do that. But we can't negotiate and give you these terms. Because if we do, we're kind of a sitting duck. And the United States was still at the table negotiating. Theoretically, this is what Joe Kent says, when they started the attack. And what prompted it all was Marco Rubio. And Marco Rubio essentially saying, well, we knew the Israelis were going to attack. So we had to take care of our interests. We had to jump in and secure our interests in the Gulf. So if you take that at face value, like, who is the driver of all of that? It's Israel. It's their policy. Well, we better go in there because they're going to fuck things up, and we need to protect our client states and our resources. How's that working out? Right. There's an alternative narrative that I'm not aware of. Okay. I brought up this thing about the SS Ford, how they had a fire on it. And there was this rumor that the guys who were on the ship started the fire because they had been deployed for over a year, almost a year. And somebody said soldiers wouldn't do that. Let me tell you what soldiers will do. My great uncle, total character, his name was Tex. And yes, Tex was from Texas. I really liked Tex. He was a cool guy. And I remember one night as a kid, he was staying at my grandmother's because he married my grandmother's sister. And we took him to the Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. And he was being deployed to Vietnam. Tex was in the Marines. He was being deployed to Vietnam. And I wasn't aware of this at the time. I think it was Travis Air Force Base. And I wasn't aware of this. It was late. I just remember being excited about being in a car and driving that late at night. Right? I was just fucking exciting. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. But this is cool, right? We got my Uncle Tex in the car. I don't recognize any of this shit, but it's cool. We actually drove kind of onto the base, and there was a guard there, and the gate, it felt like I was watching an episode of the Time Tunnel, right? And so we drop him off. But apparently, my mother told me this later, apparently he was scared. This is a grown-ass man. He was not somebody who was just your regular soldier, right? Just kidding. This guy had been in. He'd been in the military for a while, and he was scared. Well, let me tell you what happened to Tex. When he was, I think he was in the Army. He was in the Army. He wasn't the Marines. He was in the Army. So he was over there, right? He's got a wife. He's got a teenage son, teenage daughter. He's no kid. He's a sergeant. And they put him in this unit, and he finds out that these dudes have a black market ring. And they're running a black market ring on the base. And my sense is that it involved drugs. And he found out about it, and he was getting ready to bust them and get them tried and court-martialed and sentenced, right? Because it was not good. These guys found out that they were going to get busted, and they fired a goddamn RPG into his little Quonset hut thing that he shared with some other officers. And it exploded in there. And he had shrapnel embedded in his body for the rest of his life. And the shrapnel they were able to get some of it out, not all of it out. And the shrapnel caused him a tremendous amount of pain. And they flew him back to the States. And he was in a hospital for a while, I think, in Hawaii or someplace like that. Then they flew him back to the States, and he had to recuperate some more. So this idea that soldiers won't, fuck up and do something that would essentially ensure the danger of others is just it's not true. Right? It's not true. I have a familial experience of it. So again, I don't know if that's exactly what happened on the SS Ford, but to say that soldiers won't do something like that, it's not the telling of the full tale, or full telling of the tale. Okay. Why don't we leave it there? Should I play you a funny video before we go? I'll leave you on a funny video. Let's do that. I love these cat and dog videos. And this one is fucking hilarious. So you can find it. I think you guys have seen this. It's these two dogs. They have like a talk show on Instagram. Do you know about this? They have a ton of these videos. These dogs. This is funny as hell. This is where it's like, yeah, I guess I could live with a higher energy bill in AI. Here we go.
Staffy and a cat all die and go to heaven. St. Peter lets them in and sends them to the god of dogs.
God asks the Staffy, "What do you believe in?" And he goes, "Unconditional love and unconditional snuggles."
God says, "Wonderful. Sit on my right."
Then God asks the Golden, "What do you believe in?" And the Golden says, "Joy, love, and making my humans happy."
God smiles and says, "Beautiful. Sit on my left."
Finally, he turns to the cat and asks, "And you?"
And the cat goes, "I believe you're sitting in my seat." A golden retriever, a staffy, and a cat all die and go to heaven. St. Peter lets them in and sends them to the god of dogs.
God asks the Staffy, "What do you believe in?" And he goes, "Unconditional love and unconditional snuggles."
God says, "Wonderful. Sit on my right."
Then God asks the Golden, "What do you believe in?" And the Golden says, "Joy, love, and making my humans happy."
God smiles and says, "Beautiful. Sit on my left."
Finally, he turns to the cat and asks, "And you?"
And the cat goes, "I believe you're sitting in my seat."
That's fucking hilarious. I love it. I love it. It's like, I just, I see videos like that, and I'm ready to kind of look the other way with AI. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for being here. 2-hour show. We'll be back on Sunday night Astro Live. We'll crank it up. We'll do a little check under the hood with Israel, see what's going on in their chart, and we'll take a look at China's chart as well, and whatever else comes up along the way. All right. You know the drill. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Hit the like, subscribe, and shall we go out on a little Elon Musk? Why not?
Musk here for the future. It's Robert Phoenix and the Friday FARcast. Elon Musk here for the future.